So, a signal was just sent from inside the White House. And you need to understand this wasn't some quiet leak. No, this was a broadcast, a message to the world that the rules of power in America, they're being rewritten. Right now, as we speak. 200 feet. Just remember that number, because that's the radius Donald Trump has apparently drawn around the Oval Office. Think of it as a kill zone for the rule of law. And what happens inside that circle? Well, that changes absolutely everything. And this is the promise made to anyone who steps inside that circle. It's really brutally simple. Commit any crime you need for me, and I will make sure you're untouchable. This isn't just about bending the rules anymore. This is about making lawlessness the official policy at the very heart of the government. So you see, this turns the whole idea of a pardon on its head. It's no longer an act of mercy. It becomes a weapon, a scepter, really. It's not for forgiveness. It's all about control. It's designed to buy one thing and one thing only: absolute, unquestioning loyalty. And to really get this, we have to look at how power works when all the polite illusions are stripped away. The lens we need to use here comes from a theory by John Mearsheimer called political realism. Now, this isn't some academic exercise. It's about ignoring the fantasies we tell ourselves about power and focusing on the raw, brutal mechanics. And when you do that, you start to see a terrifyingly familiar pattern emerge. Mearsheimer's theory is pretty straightforward. In any system where there's no higher authority to keep you in check, you either maximize your own power or you get eliminated. Now, what if you apply that thinking not to countries, but to the inside of a government? A leader who gets this doesn't play by the rules. They break them. They see things like accountability not as a safeguard, but as the final obstacle to total control.
It's like a playbook, right? A 3-step guide for authoritarians. Step 1, find the system that holds you accountable, the thing that punishes wrongdoing. Step 2, take a weapon, like a mass pardon, and just obliterate that system. And then step 3, command the absolute total loyalty that always follows. It's a kind of psychological trap. You're promised complete protection in exchange for complete obedience. It's a guarantee that your soldiers can never, ever lose, as long as they fight for you.
And here's the thing. This is not a new playbook. Not at all. History is basically a graveyard of republics that were destroyed using this exact strategy. And every single leader who tried it ended up in the exact same place. Let's just look at the historical blueprint for a second. Okay, picture this. Italy, 1925. Benito Mussolini's black shirts are using murder and terror to grab power. When the law starts closing in on them, what does Mussolini do? He declares himself dictator and issues a massive, sweeping pardon. His thugs, his murderers, they all just walk free. He made them completely untouchable. And in return, they made him an absolute ruler. The rule of law was strangled to death with a pen. Now let's go to Germany, 1933. You see the exact same pattern, but somehow it gets even darker. Adolf Hitler's brown shirts were his muscle on the streets. After they murdered a political opponent, Hitler promised them they'd be set free. And once he got into power, he delivered. First came the pardons. But then he gave the SS its own court system, which made them completely immune to civilian law. The signal was crystal clear. If you commit a crime in the name of the Führer, there are no consequences. None. I mean, just look at the pattern here. It's laid out right in front of us. Mussolini and his black shirts, Hitler and his SS. The argument from the source material is that Donald Trump and his inner circle fit this exact same model. The weapon is always impunity, a pardon, legal immunity, whatever it takes. And the goal is always the same: create a loyal force that operates above the law to secure a kind of power that democracy was specifically designed to prevent. Look, this isn't just some history lesson. This is about what's happening right now. The argument is that this promise from Donald Trump isn't really about forgiving things that happened in the past. It's about pre-authorizing crimes that haven't even happened yet. It's the trigger for a chain reaction that is both predictable and, frankly, catastrophic. So the first shift happens on the inside. Within the White House, the fear of consequences just evaporates. The staffers who might have hesitated before, now they obey. Illegal orders get carried out. Evidence gets destroyed. Whistleblowers are crushed. The Department of Justice is no longer a check on power. It becomes another weapon. Then comes the second shift, the contagion. The signal from the very top starts to spread like a virus. All across the country, officials start to wonder, is it worth the risk to enforce the law against the president's allies? And the foundation of equal justice doesn't just crack, it begins to shatter. And that leads to the final shift, the quiet death of the entire system. You know, it doesn't end with tanks in the streets. It ends with a signature on a carton. Congress, the courts, the whole system of checks and balances, they all just become irrelevant suggestions. The republic doesn't fall with a loud bang. It's simply signed away. So who wins in this scenario? The inner circle, obviously. They're granted absolute immunity. And who loses? The American people. All of us, whose rights mean nothing if there's no rule of law to back them up. And here's the real psychological warning in all of this. A system that's built to reward crime. It doesn't have an off switch. The monster you create to serve you will eventually consume you too. So this is where we find ourselves, right now, staring down 3 possible futures. And let me be clear, none of them are safe. None of them are guaranteed. So, path 1. What if the system actually holds the line? In this future, the system actually fights back. You'd have state prosecutors wielding laws that a presidential pardon simply can't touch, and they refuse to back down. The Supreme Court would be forced to make a ruling on whether the pardon power itself can be used as a tool in a criminal conspiracy. Power gets challenged. The line holds, for now. Okay, but what about path 2? What if the system just breaks? In this scenario, federal institutions just fold. Mass pardons become normal, routine. The Department of Justice stops being an instrument of justice and becomes a permanent shield for the powerful. The executive branch achieves total dominance. And democracy? Well, it becomes a hollow shell. It exists in name only. And that brings us to path 3, the realist end in. In this future, raw power simply wins. The pardon is accepted as just another political weapon. Donald Trump's model becomes the new template for every single future president, no matter what party they're from. The presidency itself is fundamentally and permanently changed. And the republic, it doesn't end in some dramatic coup. It ends with a signature on a piece of paper. This is the final warning here, because the signal sent to the people inside the Oval Office is heard by everyone. And the message is that your freedom is no longer guaranteed by law. It's now conditional, a privilege that can be granted or taken away by the powerful. So the only question left is the one you have to answer for yourself. As you watch what happens next, just ask yourself, which one of these paths do you think we're already on?